All right, everybody, welcome back to the Friday Night Prepper Pre-Party Show. I am here with a very special guest. We're going to give people just a couple minutes to get through ads, get those notifications out, and while that's happening, I'm going to go through a couple things. If you are watching on the replay, you may not have heard, but I'm doing a little giveaway. So please, if you're not already following me over on Instagram, go ahead over there and follow me after the stream and check that out. It's prepping_with_Sarge. And then look for one of my very most recent posts. I'm actually giving away a camping blanket here that Get Out Gear sent to us. And that the instructions on how to do that are going to be over on Instagram. So just go ahead and over there and check that out. And I would love to have you follow us over there too. I actually drop content over there just about every day. So it's a little bit more frequent than what you get here on YouTube. And a couple other housekeeping things. I usually release videos twice a week. Usually on Tuesdays, I do kind of either a product review or a skill to teach something related to prepping or homesteading or wilderness survival. And on Fridays, we do the Friday Night Prepper Pre-Party. And that should have, everybody should have gotten through the ads, should have gotten through notifications. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I want to introduce a good friend of mine. I was on her channel not too long ago. I asked her to join me tonight. We're going to talk about, in case you couldn't tell from the title, earthquakes. And please welcome to the show, Vancity Prepper. How are you doing, Van?
Hey, I'm super good. Thank you so much for having me on. I love your channel, and your Instagram also is awesome, and it's great to talk to you again.
Thank you. It's good to have you on, and yes, it's been nice. It's been nice getting to know you. It's been getting nice to get to know your channel and your Instagram. And it's actually a two-part person party, right?
Yes.
It's you and your husband.
Yeah. There's two of us, and we cover a few different things, but it's usually me doing the messages and the posts and stuff like that, because right now he doesn't have Wi-Fi or cell service. He's in Labrador. Kit doesn't even have Wi-Fi, obviously he doesn't have YouTube, but yeah, so somebody's got to hold down the fort.
Yeah, and he goes on quite a lot of adventures because I enjoy following all those posts. He does some really cool stuff. Really good service stuff for the world too. Mm-hmm. He's a helicopter pilot, for those who have not been on Vancity Prepper's channel yet or her Instagram. He's a helicopter pilot, and he does rescues, I think, right? And he helps fight forest fires.
Yeah.
Really cool stuff. So you all need to check that out. But we have Mrs. Vancity Prepper today. So she is a geologist and a medic. And what else? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I love all this preparedness stuff and outdoor life and a little bit of survival stuff. I graduated the first time in 2005 and from university with geology and geophysics, and I went on to do some more school and spent a lot of time working in remote parts of New Zealand, Australia, the United States, and then I specialized a bit in northern Canada. I worked on oil rigs. I was in charge of drilling in different oil rigs. I worked doing mineral exploration. I mapped volcanoes. I worked places like Hawaii, an active volcano there. And my specialty was more making maps up in the tundra in northern Canada. So we get dropped off and we get picked up. We could be out there for months, and we get a food drop off every week. And so it'd be silent, and you'd hear the helicopter coming, and they'd drop off these bare containers with food, which I would have pre-organized what's in them and hope I did the math right. And so we'd be, filtering our own water, purifying our water, prepping food that worked. Some didn't, some did. Some had a lot of scent and it attracted animals. Some needed more water. So I automatically kind of got into the freeze-dried food and how to clean my water and all that kind of stuff, and then realized it's very in alignment with preparedness. And then while I was out there, there were some incidences, as you'd think there would be, and I decided to get trained as medic, and then over the course of time, sometimes worked exclusively in that role. Sometimes I did logistics for the projects. Sometimes I just did the rock stuff. And then through that journey, It's just led right into preparedness and, led me to channels like yours for things like the foraging. Because in that whole world, I would say like a huge weakness is foraging. Like I honestly, if I didn't have my helicopter drop-offs, I would starve. So, it's just neat what different people have to bring to the table in that realm.
And I love that about this community that like
Hmm.
everybody's bringing different skill sets. Your resume is really, really impressive. So many in the niche. They might have some basics understanding of the skills, but they've not had the opportunity to practice them. You've actually put them into practice.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of failures. I mean, I've had giardia from poorly treated water. I've been evacuated, I've been rescued, I've done stupid things, learned the hard way, and I'm always interested to see how people's gear is. And in a little way, I'm kind of old school. There were certain things I got that I really liked, and I haven't evolved to the modern stuff because my first main backcountry job professionally was like year 2000. I don't want to date myself here, but so I love your channel because I can see the newest, latest, and greatest stuff and not be so stuck in my ways.
And a lot of it is like just testing stuff out, right?
Yeah.
Because over the years of camping and Boy Scouts and hiking and all this stuff,
Hmm.
like you think certain gear is going to work until you get it
Hmm.
out there, and then you're like, I'm not going to get into bashing certain products or anything like that, but you have to test it. You have to test it because a lot of the
Hmm.
stuff that I've started with has pretty much
Hmm.
been pitched, given away, or it's like now in a backup bag way in the back of a
Yes.
closet and replaced with other stuff that finally works for me. Now, of course, that took several years experimenting with different stuff. Some of it's expensive, so like you can't
Yes.
get everything right away. You have to kind of work on, I'm going to replace my water bottle, and then I'm going to replace my knife, and I'm going to,
Hmm.
kind of work your way up till you find what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's say hi to a few people here popping
Hmm.
into chat. I saw a few people earlier. Let's see. We saw Stuart's prepping. Thank you. Always a good friend to the channel. He's here
Hmm.
just about every Friday night. Nate, Nate Dampier, thank you so much for joining us. Michelle the Great, thank you so much. Let's see. D-Man popped in. Dove season. Awesome. Good to see you all. Sugar in the Addict, always a good friend of the channel. Let's see. Chrome Dome Omega, new friend to the channel. Fred Petros, hello from Maine. I actually grew up in Massachusetts, so not too far from you there. Rita Hunter, Jason Browning. I think that compliment's for you, not for me. Can you
I
see
think
it?
it's the coffee.
Oh, it's the coffee. Okay. Coffee first, then speak.
Hmm.
Wasatch Wizard, good to see you, Bacon. Always good to have you. I've got some bourbon, let's it, to bring to the table if you have the cookies, middle ground, and all that. I love it. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And if you're watching this on replay, thank you so much. So let's see. We had a couple questions we talked about backstage.
Hmm.
Um, Before I get into these, I wanted to ask you, like, is there? I mean, I watch your channel, but for my audience, what are some of the things that you really specialize in on Vancity Prepper?
Well, the reason we started is we had some kind of cool behind the scenes emergency services footage that we were allowed to show because it wasn't during work. So we showed some catastrophic flooding, and then I did a little video about the story of what was happening. So it's a variety channel. We show some natural disasters stuff, some commentary when things happen, like the Tonga eruption. I tried to get something out about that. And so we have on Tuesday some video to do with preparedness and just general interest. Friday we have a natural hazard, critical Earth phenomenon type video, and then we have live streams on Wednesday night, of which you were so generous with your time to join us. I have a tourniquet that my dog just grabbed. So that's the three things we do every week, and then extra stuff as it comes along.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to bring the aviation in, the helicopter rescue stuff, and then we do put up some videos of some cool stuff, like some rescues in Mount Everest or some, like what's in a first aid kit. But it's flexible.
Now, I saw that you guys had done some stuff with Mount Everest rescues. Have either of you climbed Everest?
No, we've hiked the Everest Trail, and Mr. VP's done the Camp 2 rescues, aviation rescues, which is the highest. You can take a helicopter. You can't actually land, but you can use a long line to get people out. No, I haven't climbed Everest. I did so much because I worked on a lot of glacier mapping and volcano mapping through time that didn't appeal to me so much. I have been up to Kalapatar and some places that are like 5,000 meter altitude, and it's just not. I have no desire to climb Everest, but we did hike the Everest Trail together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My brother did Kilimanjaro, and
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I've got footage. I interviewed him about that. I have to edit it and get it out there at some point, but he actually got food poisoning on like the next to last day. He made it to the top though, even with
amazing.
Yeah, he says he doesn't remember like a lot of the last part of the journey because he was so sick. He thought he legit thought he was going to die.
Wow.
Yeah. And what it was they bring a lot of food with them, and I think it was like day 3 or 4, and there was some meat left, and like he was the only one in the group that ate the meat, and he was like, I should have known better. Nobody else touched it, and of course that's what got him sick.
Wow. Yeah. That's bad. Oh, and then you're up there, and well, then you need a rescue.
Yeah. So he, I think eventually he's going to do what's the tall peak in South America? I think that's the one he's thinking about next.
Nice.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. It's just funny because you're either on like the working side or the tourism side, and we're both on the working side. So it's some of the people who work in Nepal do climb as well, but it's kind of like there's like two kind of worlds, I think.
Okay. So why do you make natural hazards videos? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Sorry, I've got a dog underneath me here. So what I think is that every area has some sort of natural disaster, which you're very well aware of where you live. And I think I'm just trying to bring some awareness in case anyone hasn't thought about which ones they have in their area, because there's ones that are right in the forefront, like you experienced, and then there's others that have time scales of decades or even 100 years, and it might not be on their radar. And then, of course, it happens, and they wish they should have done it. It directly ties into preparedness, and I find learning about these things, taking the mystery out of it, helps reduce the fear, because a lot of people say, oh, people prep for fear, but I feel like when you really understand why something's happening, it totally takes the fear out of it, because it's like, okay, for example, we did a video about Yellowstone, and a lot of the stuff about Yellowstone I think is sensationalized, and Yellowstone isn't on my radar. I'm just one opinion, but personally it's not. So we shared that video and hope to reduce the worry in a way, but then also and hopefully a little bit of inspiration for people to look in their areas, because a quick Google can do that, and then just get the discussion going and sharing ideas about that. And we take requests, so we'll make a video. We made a video in honor of you today, to talk about your area, and that's kind of fun because it's fun to look into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen it, everybody, as we were getting ready to do this stream, we were talking a couple weeks ago, Van and I had asked her, because I knew she knew a lot about geological activity, I had asked her about my state, because Charleston, where I live, y'all, had, I think, 12 earthquakes this year, which is higher than usual. They were all very, very small. So small that like I didn't personally feel any of them. My wife and my dog both noticed it. I heard one, and it sounded like a loud crack, like almost like a really large window had cracked, is what it sounded like. And then that was the first thing we noticed. And then the dog like kind of jumped up and was like looking around. And then my wife said, "Did you feel that?" And I was like, "No, what?" Because I was in my recliner, and that probably buffered
it was just like
yeah, I didn't feel it at all. And she's like, it just felt like the house went like that. And I was like, no, I didn't
Wow.
notice it. But I was like, that explains why the dog just did that and the loud noise that we just heard. So we do in the video. I don't want to spoil too much of it. I want you all to check it out. Especially, I know I've got my dog's right under my feet too. She's like literally like right there. The South Carolina is sitting on a few different fault lines, and I know that like Titan Preparedness is also from South Carolina, and Palmetto Prepared is also from South Carolina, and not that he knows who I am, but Such Sensible Preparedness, who's a very large channel, he's in South Carolina. So we're all kind of sitting around that earthquake, and when you watch the video, Van will let you know if I'm going to end up in the ocean or not. Right.
Well, that's what they thought. I mean, it's interesting to think about, without spoiling it. When the last large one happened, they believed that Florida broke off from the rest of the United States, because it's just so interesting. Like, imagine thinking that, because everything shook, and then thinking that would be the logical outcome. That isn't something that would happen according to modern science, but imagine thinking that Florida was left.
Yeah. And my fear was, when I asked Van about this, my fear was, if we have, obviously where we're sitting on so many fault lines over here, if we had one go on off the coast, because I'm very, very close to the ocean, was a tsunami. That's what I was really worried about. So you'll have to, I don't want to spoil it. I want them to go watch the video.
I had fun doing that video. I appreciate you asking, because not everybody does. So it was a fun project for me to look into, because I learned a lot.
I really appreciate it. You answered a lot of questions for me. Thank you.
It's just the skim the surface, but it was interesting for sure.
Okay, looks like we got a couple questions here. Let me pop back over to chat for a second. Let's see. Scroll back up. So Bacon says that my brother was poisoned by a vegan.
Oh no.
Let's see. I think this one's for you. Other than awareness, does the Shakeout BC drill actually help people prepare, or does it miss the mark and bang for the buck? Do you know what that's about?
I do. Yeah, we grew up doing that. Well, okay, so one of the things is I'd love to know, Jody, what you think, because you know about it, so you must have done it or have experience with it. That would be interesting to know. So I think it is good. I'm not an expert on that or anything, but what it does is bring awareness that when a person feels an earthquake, they know what to do. They can get themselves to some safety, and then they learn some things like how the duration. Some of the big West Coast earthquakes could last for minutes. So they know, they've got to sit tight, they got to wait, and then hopefully shelter themselves from the particular glass and big falling objects and stuff. And because they do target that at children, I do think it's good, because if you weren't expecting an earthquake and then you felt one, it would be pretty daunting. And as we all know, in the preparedness sphere, your mindset is the most important part, and keeping yourself calm. So if you've already done drills, your body has some muscle memory of what to do. You're way less likely to freak out. You're way less likely to go to your protocol to figure out what you have to do next, and you're more likely to be all right.
Mm-hmm. That's true for like all natural disasters. Like, I grew up with blizzards, and so like now I live in the South, when like we hardly ever get snow. It's a very rare thing. When we get snow here, people like freak out, like really freak out, and they don't know how to drive in it, which is really funny. But like for me, that was an all the time thing. Then I lived in Kentucky for 10 years, and we had tornado warnings like all the time. And I lived through a couple like really near misses. Tornadoes are pretty terrifying, I'm not going to lie. But the first time you live through one that's really close to you, you'll never forget it. And everybody has the same, if you watch interviews, they all have the same reaction. Like, the sky turned green and it sounded like a train was about to hit the house, and I thought I was going to die. And that's how I felt too, Now, like, we have tornado warnings once in a while here in Charleston, and like we don't even change what we're doing. We just keep watching TV or whatever, because we've been through much, much worse ones in Kentucky, and like no like an EF1, an EF0, an EF1, like, yeah, they'll do some damage. You could land a tree on your house, but if you're not outside, if you're in a good building, you're probably going to be okay.
Mhm.
Once you start getting above an EF2, it starts getting a little bit more interesting.
You guys have so much grit. The people who go through that stuff on a regular basis, it's amazing. You're so tough. I love how so many of the people in the American preparedness community have that type of experience. It's so interesting to listen to it.
Now I have hurricanes, and that's in some ways it's better, some ways it's worse. You know, you have a lot more warning usually on a hurricane. Like we usually have a couple days to prepare for it. And generally speaking, like having been through a few now, I mean, it's not as simple as saying this because there's things like the storm surge, which is just as much, if not more dangerous than the hurricane winds. So I'm oversimplifying it, but like a category 2 hurricane at this point, like having been through a few of them, we kind of know what to expect. Category 4 is scary. I would advise anybody that's like close to a city that's about to get hit by category 4 or 5, like you really got to think about getting out of there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Category 5 is a city killer, and I think the big one that Charleston had was way before I moved here. It was Hugo, and you can look up. There's all kinds of videos and documentaries about that. Hugo bent one of the steel bridges here, like twisted a steel bridge. And I've seen pictures from Hugo from the people who lived here where cars were in trees. Wow. Cars were in trees.
Wow.
It's a city killer. It's like it's unimaginable wrath of nature, you know?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I think we had a couple more questions here. Chrome Dome is just letting you know that you subbed now.
Oh, thanks.
And if you're watching this on replay, I did put Vancity Preppers link in the description. You can check it out there, and we'll try to drop it a few times during the stream here in the chat.
Thanks. Every video I watch from everybody, all the channels I enjoy, I never get notifications, and I get unsubbed to everybody. So it's just life.
It's happened to me too. Do you know Talon's Eye? Do you follow Talon's Eye? Pretty big channel. I've been unsubscribed by YouTube, not by me, by YouTube 3 times to his channel. And he's done a couple of videos talking about like they're screwing with him, and he's right.
Oh yeah, I watch everything that Prepping by Faith, for example, puts out. And I just looked the other day and I was like 3 behind. It's like, it was annoying because I wanted to keep it.
All right, Fed Up American, thanks for joining in. I saw Vanessa Kitty, thank you so much. Fracking events, Vanessa Kitty, can you clarify what you mean? Like, I know what fracking is. That's when you're trying to get up the oil and the natural gas, right? Are you asking if that could cause destruction to the mantle? So we'll give you a second to kind of clarify that. Harvey, thanks for joining in. Let's see. Bacon, what's funny about this topic to me is I grew up close to extension of the San Andreas fault line, lived through North Ridge. Now every place I move to is near a caldera. Funny enough. Yep.
Wow.
Rita is in between 2 of the South Carolina faults. Yep. A lot of little ones. We haven't had a big one, thankfully. Thank God. Let's see. I think I saw the other Stuart popping in too. Okay, and then I got an answer here from Jody. Shakeout is okay for what it is. Brings awareness, but there seems to be a missed opportunity for follow-up.
Yeah, and some groups, some companies don't do it at all. It's a big thing for little kids and stuff like that. I mean, in BC, the whole earthquake thing is people are underprepared for the most part, massively.
Yeah. We'll let me clear out these questions. Maybe we'll go into what to do next then. Vanessa Kitty's lived through 2 tornadoes that went on each side of the house under a mile away. Yeah. It's scary stuff. All right. Uncle says earthquakes are not a matter of if, sort of like an accident when you ride a motorcycle, not if, but when. The big one in St. Helen too. But that was a volcano. Yeah. So while I'm kind of scrolling through these, do you happen to know offhand what the biggest one on record is?
The biggest earthquake in the whole world?
Yes, that we know of on record. Like during
There's
modern history, not like, the continental shifts or anything like that.
Yeah, I'd have to get back to you about that, but some of some of the ones in Alaska are pretty massive.
I think I
Maybe
read,
that'd be a good video.
yeah,
I'll write
I,
that down.
I think I read that 9 was like there's not been any in modern history of a 9.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Yeah, and those the mega earthquakes like we're expecting off the west coast of BC. I mean, we did a video about that, and the large subduction zone earthquakes because it's a very different setup than what they have in California, and those quakes would go for minutes. Like it could be 5 minutes.
So here's a good question here, and this is kind of what started you and I talking before we had set up the idea to do our stream on this. Are we getting more seismic activity, or is it just being reported more?
So you're gonna have different opinions on that, and we're on YouTube, and I'm just giving a YouTube opinion, so it's whatever that's worth. But I believe it's being recorded more. And it's like if you look at the volcanic activity over time, it's way harder to put the pieces back together like a forensic investigation of old volcanic activity versus all the ones currently on Earth, like 10 erupting at any given time. So as instruments get better, as more remote areas are being logged, it looks like there's more. I personally don't think that, I don't believe the theory that the Ring of Fire is getting more active and all that borderline conspiratorial discussion. That doesn't mean it's not happening. We all have our opinion. I am going to do a video to talk about that.
Okay.
But I do think that it's being reported more.
Okay. Can you briefly explain what the Ring of Fire is for a layperson like me that doesn't know what that is?
Oh, yeah. So around the Pacific Ocean, there's a whole bunch of plate boundaries. And so you've got, like on the west coast of British Columbia, you've got a plate subducting under BC. And with it, it's taking the ocean plate and it's taking a whole bunch of sediment. It's also taking a lot of water with it. And as it gets deep with high temperatures and pressures, it creates magma that is more buoyant and it wants to get to the surface. So you get volcanoes along that ring. And so the plate boundaries are all around. It's the difference between the ocean plate and the continent. And the ocean plate are basically, it's made of old volcanic rocks that form in the mid-ocean ridge and spread apart. So it's like a conveyor belt, and it needs to go somewhere. So it gets over to the continent, and then it abuts the continent, and it can subduct or it can slide side to side. And the continents are more buoyant; they're more silica rich, so they're basically floating on the top of Earth.
Okay.
But anyway, I have shown a video of what the Ring of Fire is. So it's basically around the Pacific Ocean. You get lots of earthquake activity, and then you also get a lot of volcano activity. It's not the only places you get earthquakes and volcanoes, but it is kind of the hallmark of the type of environment that you get that stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that was Vanessa Kitty got back to us here. She was wanting to know, does the amount of fracking out there have any correlation to the earthquakes? Do we know?
Yeah. Yeah. So fracking, like just in case there's anyone who's listening who doesn't know what fracking is, just in like the most general way of explaining it, if you have like a big area and you want to drill it for oil, and you, instead of going like a pincushion all the way around, you can find like one central point, go down, and then radiate outwards, and you can break up the earth a little bit, and that can cause earthquakes. They're usually small, but not always, and they're usually regionally specific. So if you do that, is it going to trigger the big one off of BC? I keep using that example. That's not correlated because they're very regionally specific.
Okay. Good. Thank you. And let's see. Harvey wants to know why, if you lay on the concrete during an earthquake, why does it feel like a rolling motion?
Oh yeah, it's just because like you have two types of waves, and this is getting outside of my area of expertise, by the way.
Okay.
So just so you know, I'm not pretending to be an expert on this,
Okay.
but from the where the earthquake comes from, you get two types of waves. Like you get the waves the surface waves that are going like you think ocean waves, and then you get also waves that are going like this. So it's all emanating from the epicenter in all directions, and the whole Earth is like it's bending,
Mm.
and that's why it's really interesting because you can have cities where certain buildings are just flattened, and then the building next to it is still standing, and it's because there's the relationship between where the main wave types intersect. So you may have a place where it intersects at that point and it just flattens things, but then the next door was spared. So I mean we're getting into like geophysical stuff, but it's interesting for sure.
Okay. And then I think Uncle looked this up for us, unless he knew it offhand, which is great. 9.5 in 1960 for Chile. I'm gonna have to look that up because that would be super interesting. I'm curious, like how far away that was felt and whatnot. And what kind of did it cause a lot of tsunamis and that kind of stuff? Because that's huge, right? Like anything over a 7 is pretty big.
Oh yeah.
And there's no upper end, right? From what in theory, there's no like. That's what I read, that there's no like upper end to the Richter. Is it called the Richter scale?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, there's going to be a point where it's like physically to generate that much of a release. Like, how would you do it? You know,
It would be
I don't know.
catastrophic after a certain
Yeah,
point, like to the
yeah.
entire planet. Okay. Okay, I think we got most of the questions here. And if you all could, you guys are giving some great questions. If you've got something, put it in caps so I can try, because there's a lot of good chat going on. I'm gonna try not to miss the questions here. We cannot get a 10.0 because the magnitude of earthquake is related to the length of the fault line. Is that true? Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Because where are you going to get the energy? Because that's the thing. Like, you need the source of the energy.
Well, thank you, Uncle, for helping us out there. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. Good.
Next week's guest.
Next, yeah, I'd love it. I need to get you on, Uncle. That's a great idea. He does a lot of live streams. All right, so obviously you live in an area prone to earthquakes. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and what are some good tips for preppers, like not just like thinking ahead, like what do I need to have in the house and that kind of thing, but also if it happens, what do I do?
Yeah, and so again, this isn't like my area specifically. This isn't what I do for work, but it is something I've studied a little bit about. So it's all the usual stuff, because you know that question everyone gets: what do you prepare for? Right? As a prepping channel, I'm sure you get asked that. What do you prepare for? And a lot of people say everything, because how you prepare for each thing, you're sort of doing the same things, right? You're looking at your food, your medicine, your mental fortitude, your physical health, like all that stuff. And then you just insert what the dilemma is and you prep the same. So all that usual stuff. Emergency response plan, like a family written out emergency response plan, is really good. As people, we have a duotang, and it's got everything in it. People can print those off of the internet, but they really should have a earthquake response plan, and a contact that's outside of their province, state, or even country, where people can call to be the main receiver and deliverer of information. So having that set up in that plan is good. And then some people don't have earthquake insurance, right? Because they expect that it's covered in their regular insurance, and it's not. So, or it usually isn't. So making sure that you have your insurance, because that'll help your financial preps, which I know you're big on, is your financial preps. And all the usual stuff like protecting your home, things that could fall over, bolting stuff to the wall. Looking at, like, do you have little people in their house, or like what's their room like, all that kind of stuff. And then having, for example, a wrench attached to your gas, so that if something happens, you can turn off your gas. So having it attached, so it's just like right there, all that kind of good stuff.
That's a really good suggestion. I wouldn't have thought of that because obviously that with as pipes are bursting and things like that, there's going to be huge explosion and fire risks in the aftermath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about like, let's say that we didn't have any of that stuff. We weren't expecting it. I'm visiting Vancouver, and all of a sudden something really decent sized is happening. Like, is there a safe spot in the house that I should go to? I remember hearing things about like go between a doorway. Is there any truth to that, or?
Well, I have heard that avoiding doorways is good, but you want to already have mapped out the structurally safe parts of your house. Like you don't want to be next to the window. You don't want to live downstream from a big dam that could let go. It's that kind of stuff too about like where you select you want to live if you have the choice. Not everyone has the choice where they live, but yeah.
I don't know if you can answer this, but I think it's an interesting question. The gravitational pull of like the moon and other planets and stuff like that. Do we think that has any effect on it?
Not a significant effect. Like what level of effect, I don't know, but those aren't the key things that scientists look at for the cause.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've ever seen it. I know you and I kind of talked off stream, but do you follow Survival Living, CFP, Central
Oh
Florida?
yeah, he's one of my favorite channels.
Did you see the series? And this is for everybody in the audience and chat too. Did you see the series he did about the Great Cataclysmic Shift?
To be honest, even though he is one of my favorite, I haven't seen that series, so I should watch it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, obviously, it's not something we're likely to see. There's a lot of things that can cause human extinction, but he covered it, and he said right up front, like, I'm not doing this as fear porn. This is not something you should really be letting give you anxiety because it's probably not going to happen anytime, in the next 1,000 years. But he kind of did a what if. We had it because it has happened before. You talked about like the continents shifting, and you talked about that in the video that you did about South Carolina a little bit. And basically, he did a really, really nice breakdown. And there really is no way to prepare for that, anyways. So like, you shouldn't let it bother you. It pretty much would wipe out like 80% of the life on the planet.
Yeah, there's been massive extinction events, right? Like, of
course,
for example, the asteroid that was associated with the dinosaur extinction and stuff like that, which I've said this before, but on June 25th in relation to World Asteroid Day, I believe it is, the fellow who found that crater, the Chicxulub crater, in his PhD thesis, who is somebody that I know, is coming onto the channel for an interview.
Oh, nice.
To talk about, how he found it, and it's super cool. I don't worry about stuff like that because it's one of those big things.
Yeah. There's certain, I work on, I contribute to a couple different prepper forums, and people ask questions about, there's certain events that I just say I don't prepare for that because there's certain events that are so catastrophic that I'm not even sure I would want to live through. Like a nuclear war. Like I don't prepare for a nuclear war because honestly, my city, not to get into the logistics and put too much stuff out there on the internet, it would be one of either a primary or a secondary target. And I'm okay with that because I wouldn't want to live in the aftermath of it. Now, an interesting discussion to a little bit off topic, though, would be if you live near like a power plant or something like that, you should take some preps into account for like radiation leaks and things like that. I think that's a sensible thing. Let's see. Jody said, if you're taking shelter in a bathroom, be aware about mirrors that could shatter. I think that's a great point. Bathtub with a mattress over you. What do you think?
Well, I don't know because that's not my area of expertise. But where are you gonna get the mattress? Yes, I guess because the thing is when it starts, like you're not gonna be doing a bunch of running around. So that's the tricky part. Is it's gonna be, you want to be somewhere structurally sound. It could be as quick as getting next to your bed so the thing comes down from the ceiling that it stops it. But if it's big, you're not going to be running around.
Yeah, and you're not, and it's if it's moving the ground like that, it'd be kind of hard, right? Like you'd be probably getting thrown off your feet if you're trying to run
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why in those drills they get you under tables and stuff, because stuff's gonna be falling.
Gotcha. All right. If you all have any other questions about geological events, please throw them in chat now because we're getting ready to shift and start to wind it down. So while we're waiting to see if any of those come in, is there a piece of gear that really surprised you? We're going to circle back to the gear questions. Is there a piece of gear that really surprised you that like this overperformed or underperformed and like you're like, nope, that's got to go?
It just in general?
In general.
Well, I didn't realize how much this fanny pack would perform because I thought, how much better could this make my life? But it really made my life so much better. So I would say this overperformed. A couple other things and it's all positives today, is I have really good gloves all the time. These ones are great. They can get wet. They protect my hands from everything. I know some of you guys live in hot climates. I'm in Canada, so I mean, people beat me up because they're like, you're not. At the moment, we are in the mildest part of Canada, but we're actually this month relocating to Grow Zone 2 in Canada, which is not much growth, like way up north. So people won't be able to bug me about that anymore. But anyway, Canada gloves all year long, and then I love a tactical pen. I just think that everyone should have these everywhere. And then if you need to use it to break glass, you have your gloves. Because who wants to break glass without gloves? Not me.
Right.
And then the other thing that I just can't get enough of, and none of this is, I'm not plugging anything because I'm not affiliated to any of this stuff, just is a little portable radio with
Earbuds.
Earbuds, and it's just this one. I have more fancy ones, but this one's just so simple. It's so light, and it just takes AAA batteries. And yeah, if I was wandering somewhere and I didn't have Wi-Fi, I can just hear what's going on. So those are just a few things. But really, the fanny pack. If I could take one thing with me, ever, no, the tactical fanny pack. Yes.
And for those of you who don't know, that's a little shout out to Urban Prepper and Nothing Fancy.
Yeah, exactly. And I know there's going to be people who are like, "Whoa, she's not very prepared," but that's okay.
So, all right. So I'm going to pocket check you now. What do you got in your pocket?
Oh, well,
or fanny pack counts too, though, because you have.
Yeah, it was. I just showed you, but I do have some other stuff, but it's more on like the medic side of things.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. What would you have? What suggestions do you have for people in terms of, I think both skills and gear, like training that you would recommend, and gear from your experiences working as a medic too?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the best thing that anyone can do, and most people in this who are listening to this live stream already would do this because they're preparedness-minded people, but is training, because then you know what to expect. And the whole the mystery being out of the whole situation is key, because nothing phases you if you kind of know what to expect or what could happen. So training obviously is really important. I see all the time it's talking about tourniquets. Everywhere I go is talking about tourniquets, but do people have the training to know how to use tourniquet like properly? Because it can cause a lot of problems if you don't need to use it and use it and that kind of thing. Like having tourniquets outside of their packaging and ready and all ready to go and staged. Because I have seen a couple videos where they're still in the plastic, which is different if it's like unboxing or whatever. But like in a it should be ready to go. Would be one thing, but training first, then gear after that, because you're a lot more resourceful if you have the training and no gear than if you have the gear and no training. I'd love to see more gauze, like more, because people have lots of tourniquets, but lots of, like, these are little ones, but lots of these abdominal, these ABD pads, they come in big ones, bigger, bulky gauze everywhere. I have these in everything
Mm-hmm.
because not everything that's a massive bleed requires a tourniquet. So tons and tons of gauze. Also, I don't feel like I hear often enough like the importance of medical gloves, which if you have training, you walk into a scene, you put your gloves on all the time because those clean gloves can be used to apply pressure even before somebody is giving you all your materials that you need. Eye safety isn't cool, but I wish people talked about more. I have dealt with a person who got a rock through their eyeball, and
Oof.
because they were breaking rocks with a hammer, and a
Oh,
shard went off
splinter.
and went right through. And it disappeared. It sliced through,
Oof.
and then went right in, and their eye actually looked okay, but definitely wasn't.
Wow.
So wearing eye protection, even with hiking off trail and stuff, because I also know somebody who had a little stick, just how it
Oh,
swings
yeah.
back and hit them in the eye, and they have a permanently damaged eye. And that could be anyone who's practicing their bug outs. It's so uncool, but let's make it cool to wear safety glasses when we're hiking around.
Absolutely.
Also, I love those little keychain. Um, so of course, nobody's just going to give CPR. Well, okay, so now they're teaching, of course, compressions over rescue breaths, but there are times when people still do rescue breaths. They learn it in their training for whatever reason. And those keychain little valve resuscitator things are great. I've used them even on a stranger. But these pocket masks are so great to have. I mean, they could be good for your family. These
Mhm.
are good. I have them everywhere, and they are good. If somebody had a respiratory emergency, you can use those. Obviously, nobody's going to recommend getting super close. Well, people will make their own decision how close they want to get to people, but these are good. So there's just a couple of ideas. Oh, and if people had extra bucks, like if they win the lottery, having your own AED is really good.
Nice. Yeah.
But obviously that's not accessible to everybody. But having one of those for travels, I would put it. I'd rather buy one of those than go on a vacation or something. But I'm
Mhm.
not going on any vacations.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. I've been trained on those through work. They pretty much do the work for you. It's an absolute difference between life or death for a lot of situations. One thing I need to add to mine, which apparently I can get in my area, is Narcan. And the reason I say that is we have such a huge problem here with. I don't want to get too much into this because I'll start getting attention from YouTube, but we have a huge
Yeah.
problem in our area with people putting the certain drug that starts with an F in everything. Like they're putting it in marijuana, everything. And so people are accidentally, just people who are recreationally using that kind of stuff are getting something much, much more severe. I know somebody who accidentally touched it. It was a law enforcement officer who accidentally touched it and dropped like that. It's so dangerous. And so all the law enforcement officers here, all the firefighters, all carry Narcan. And
I carry it. I have some over there, but it's out of reach. It's not in my pocket. All this should be in my pocket.
it's hard to carry it all. So,
Yeah.
all right. So I think I saw one more question here. Hang on one second, and then we'll start to wind it down. Do you know what a Lahar warning is? A Lahar?
Oh yeah, a Lahar Warning.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm not in the path of a Lahar. A
okay.
Lahar is a fast-moving, all-encompassing volcanic eruption product, and if there's lots of places around Mount Rainier and stuff that you have to worry about that kind of stuff. But I'm not in the path at this moment. But I would, if I was, I would have a plan. Hey, you, quiet.
Yeah, and I would encourage everybody to please check out Vancity's Yellowstone video too. Really cool, and definitely made me feel a little bit better.
Sorry.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, I hope that some of them are reassuring. I want to de-escalate if I can some of the worry.
It did for me. It did for me. So let me go ahead and drop Vin's if I can. see if I still got it saved. Yep, there we go. So this is, if you're in chat right now, that's Vancity Prepper's YouTube channel. And it's also, if you're watching this on replay, it will be in the description. And also check her out if you're on Instagram, Vancity Prepper. She's been a fantastic contributor to the prepping community, and I'm very, very grateful to have you as a friend.
Oh, I'm glad to have you as a friend. I really appreciate to get to be on here. I don't go on a lot of live streams other than the ones I have on Wednesday myself.
And you have had some amazing guests too. Like, you really have had some of the big names in the business. So I really enjoy watching all that. And I think she also did another live stream I want you to check out with a lot of the women in prepping, which was really, really cool. So.
Oh, there's been some fun Saturday ones for sure.
Mm-hmm. Anything you got coming up? Anything you want to plug?
No, just that if anybody has a topic. So basically, if we can research a topic, not saying that think we're an expert on it or anything like that, but if you want someone to do a little bit of investigative work on a topic to do with rocks or natural hazards, natural disasters, just let us know, and we'll do a video about it. And those are our Fridays, and always enjoy when people stop by the live stream. We hopefully have some interesting ones coming up this month.
Awesome stuff. And if you're still watching, thank you everybody for joining in on the chat. There was some great questions. Please make sure you check out Vancity Prepper's YouTube and Instagram if you're over there. If you haven't already done so, please consider giving this video a like, share it with your friends, and we will see you next time. Thank you again, Van. I really appreciate you. You are awesome, and thank you so much for that video you did for South Carolina. It is really cool. I hope people check that out.
Yeah, I hope people see it too, and they'll get referred over to your channel. Hey, there's Titan. Cool. Good to see you.
T2, we were talking about you earlier. Van just put up a video today about earthquakes in South Carolina. Make sure you check that out. All right, everybody, we'll call it a night. I hope everybody has a great weekend. There's a couple things I always say in closing, and that is, number one, if you're lucky enough that your mom is still here on the planet, if she's still alive, call her. Call your mom. Tell her you love her. If you have anybody that you are holding back forgiveness for, and it's not a big transgression, consider granting forgiveness. You'll feel better, and they'll feel better too. Life is too short to hold on to a grudge. Keep planting your seeds. Keep planting your seeds. Keep stacking your silver. This is Vancity Prepper and Sarge.